Ladies and gentlemen, there is a power so great, so unstoppable, so full of purpose that it does not come from the outside, it comes from within you. You see, too many of us are walking through life as if we are powerless, as if we are meant to barely get by, to survive instead of thrive. But I came here to tell you something different. I came here to remind you that you were made for more. There's a fire placed in the soul of every man, every woman, every child. A fire not born of this world, but placed there by the very hand of our Creator. You were not born by accident. You were not born weak. You were not born to live in chains. You were born with power. But here's the truth. Power without belief is like a sword left in its sheath. Useless, forgotten, gathering dust. It's not about what you have in your hands. It's about what you carry in your heart. Fear will whisper that you're not enough. Doubt will try to chain you. But listen, faith breaks every chain. Faith reaches into the dark and says, I still believe. It is not the loudest voice in the room that wins, but the voice inside you that refuses to give up. I've seen lives turned around. I've seen broken people stand tall. I've seen the addicted walk free, the hopeless find joy, the forgotten become leaders. Not because of what the world gave them, but because they discovered the power within. Don't you see? The victory you're waiting for, the peace you're praying for, the strength you think is gone, it's all inside of you right now. You don't need to chase the world. You need to awaken the giant within. Because the power inside you is greater than the storm outside you. And so I ask you, will you rise? Will you believe again? Will you stand on the truth that you were made with purpose, filled with power, destined for more? That, my friend, is the power within you. Let me know if you'd like this speech shortened, expanded, or tailored for a specific event like school, church, or a seminar. From the moment you drew your first breath, before the world ever knew your name, before your feet had touched the ground or your eyes had seen the sun, there was already something written deep within you, a divine fingerprint stamped on your soul, a purpose etched by hands greater than time itself. And no matter what you've been told, no matter what you've been through, no matter who walked away or what life took from you, the truth still remains that you were not born by accident, not formed by coincidence, not shaped by mistake, but designed with destiny, formed in love. Well, by name for something greater than just existing or surviving. Because in this world that tries to define you by failure, tries to chain you with shame, tries to bury your dreams beneath doubt and distraction, there is a deeper voice that speaks louder than fear. A truth that cuts through the noise of every lie you've ever believed. Truth that says your life matters, that your breath carries weight, that your presence shifts the atmosphere, that your story still has chapters unwritten, and your heart still has songs unsung, because the purpose planted within you is not dead, it's not gone. It's just waiting for you to believe again. There is something inside of you that no one else carries, a fire that can't be copied, a light that can't be dimmed, a sound that can only be released by you. And no matter how many setbacks, no matter how many delays, no matter how many scars you carry, that purpose still pulses, still beats, still burns, waiting for the moment you'll stop chasing who the world wants you to be and start becoming who you were always meant to be, because deep down, beneath the noise and the fear and the pressure to perform, there is still that original design, still that eternal intention. Still that whisper that says you are called. And I know it's hard to believe sometimes when the nights are long and the answers are few. When the mirror reflects pain more than purpose, when every step forward feels like you're walking through storm after storm. But let me tell you something loud and clear. Storms don't cancel purpose. Oh. Wounds don't erase calling. Brokenness doesn't disqualify destiny. And even when you feel forgotten, you are still known, still seen, still held by the one who gave you this breath, this heartbeat, this life to begin with. Your purpose is not tied to applause. It's not wrapped in titles. It's not secured by how many people approve of you or understand you. Because real purpose, true purpose, eternal purpose is something that cannot be taken by man or measured by numbers or shaken by seasons. It is anchored deep within your being, a compass pointing north when everything around you spins, a light in the darkness that says that there is more, even when everything says that this is the end. And oh, how the world needs what you carry, how this generation needs your voice, your fire, your fight, your kindness, your creativity, your courage to stand when it would be easier to sit, to speak when it would be safer to stay silent, to walk when the road is long and lonely. Because your purpose is not just for you, it's for those who need what's inside of you, who need your story, who need your healing, who need your testimony. Because when you rise in your purpose, others remember they can rise in this. Don't you dare believe the lie that it's too late or too broken or too far gone. because the one who placed the purpose inside of you does not change his mind. He does not take back what he's given. He does not discard what he creates. And even if it's been buried under years of silence or pushed aside by pain or hidden beneath disappointment, it can be awakened again. It can breathe again. It can roar again. Because what is born of heaven cannot be killed by hell. And what is placed by purpose cannot be removed by pressure. Let this be the moment, not when you get all the answers, not when life gets easier, not when the path gets clear, but right now in the middle of the mess, in the center of the confusion, right here where you are. This is where purpose begins to rise again. This is where the flame begins to burn again. This is where the voice inside of you starts to speak louder than every lie. And this is where you stand not as someone forgotten, not as someone lost, but as someone chosen, called, equipped, and filled with the undeniable, unstoppable truth that you were created with purpose. There is a battle that rages not out there in the world, but deep within, a daily war between two voices. One that says you can, and one that says you can't. One that breathes courage, and one that whispers fear. And if you let it, fear will always shout louder. Fear will always feel bigger. Fear will always dress itself in logic and reason and tell you to stay safe, stay small, stay still. But faith, oh faith. Faith is the quiet voice that doesn't shout but calls, that doesn't control but invites. That doesn't demand proof but simply says, trust me. And then that trust, in that surrender, in that moment where you step even though you can't see, that's where real power is born. Because fear wants to paralyze, fear wants to shrink you down until your voice is a whisper and your dreams are dust. Fear feeds on what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. Fear paints the future in shadows and chains. And if you listen long enough, you'll start to believe the lie that fear is protecting you, that it's keeping you safe, when in truth it's just keeping you stuck. But faith is not blind. It sees further. It sees deeper. It sees not just what is, but what could be, what should be, and even what already is in the unseen. Because faith walks by vision, not by sight, by hope, not by headlines, by promise, not by pressure, and that's why it has power. Faith doesn't need all the pieces to step forward. It doesn't wait for perfect timing. It doesn't consult with fear to make decisions. It doesn't tremble in the face of giants or turn around at the first sign of storm. No, faith stands tall when everything around it is shaking. Faith plants its feet in the ground and lifts its head to the heavens and says, I don't know how, I don't know when, but I know who. And that knowing becomes its strength, that trust becomes its anchor. And in that anchor there's peace that fear can't touch, joy that chaos can't take, and a fire that failure can't quench. Because the power that faith unlocks is not from this world. It's not based on resources or resumes or reputation. It's not limited by age or background or mistakes. It's power that flows from the source of all things, the one who holds the stars in place and still chooses to dwell within you. To speak through you, to walk beside you. And when you begin to believe that the same power that raised the dead, split the seas, healed the broken, and calmed the storm now lives in you, then fear loses its grip, because now you understand that you are not walking alone. And I know fear is loud. I know it's real. I know it tries to show up in the midnight hour, when the room is quiet and the doubts start knocking, when the voices say you're not enough, not ready, not worthy. Hear me? Faith doesn't ask your feelings for permission. It doesn't check with your past to decide your future. It doesn't rely on comfort to keep moving. It dares to believe in the middle of the trial. It dares to sing in the middle of the storm. It dares to declare, I am more than what's coming against me, because I know who's standing within me. Be. And this is where the shift happens, not when the situation changes, not when the enemy disappears, not when the fear vanishes completely, but when your faith gets louder than your fear, when your belief becomes stronger than your doubts, when you realize that even trembling faith is still faith, that even a whisper of hope can move mountains, that even the smallest yes to God can unlock a future bigger than you ever imagined. Because power isn't found in having it all together. It's found in trusting the one who does. So let fear say what it wants. Let doubt try what it can. Let the world scream its threats, because when you walk in faith, when you choose belief over anxiety, trust over control, hope over despair, you are stepping into a power that fear cannot match, that darkness cannot defeat, that lies cannot silence. And though you may not always feel strong, though the road may not always be clear, there will always be enough grace for the step, always enough strength for the day, always enough light for the path, and always enough power within you to keep going. And I tell you this not as a theory or a wish, but as a truth that has stood the test of time, that has carried the broken, lifted the weary, healed the hurting, and transformed the timid into warriors. Because real power doesn't come from avoiding fear. It comes from facing it with faith. Stepping forward anyway, choosing to believe that your story isn't over, your God isn't done, and your future is still unfolding in power. Because the true power was never in fear to begin with. It's always been in faith. Before the breakthrough shows up on the outside, before the doors swing open, and the battle is won, and the mountain moves, and the storm clears, before anyone sees the results, there is something deeper, something hidden, something quiet that must shift, must rise, must awaken on the inside of you. Because true victory, lasting victory, unshakable victory doesn't start when your situation changes, doesn't begin when your enemies flee, doesn't arrive when the pressure lifts. It starts the moment you decide in your heart that you are no longer defeated, that you are no longer bound by fear, no longer ruled by shame, no longer owned by the weight of what was, because the battlefield is within before it is ever around. And you can spend your whole life trying to fix things on the outside, trying to get the right people, the right place, the right timing, trying to manipulate and manage and maneuver everything. So it looks like success, but if the inside is still full of fear, still full of doubt, still full of bitterness and insecurity and guilt, then no matter how polished the outside appears, the enemy will still have a seat at your table, because real victory is not about the image you project. It's about the truth you believe, the truth that says you are not what you've done, not what you've lost, not what others said about you, but you are chosen, forgiven, equipped, and called for more. And once you grab hold of that truth, not in your head, but in your spirit, once it sinks in, once it becomes more real than the pain, more real than the past, more real than the lie that says you'll never change, begin to fall even before the cell door opens. Then the battle starts turning even before the enemy retreats. Then the atmosphere shifts even before the winds calm down, because your victory was never dependent on the situation. It was always rooted in the revelation of who you are and whose you are. And when you start seeing yourself through heaven's eyes, the enemy can't keep you down. You've got to stop waiting for the world to affirm what God has already spoken over you. Stop waiting for the apology, for the recognition, for the opportunity, because everything you need to rise, everything you need to fight, everything you need to walk in victory has already been placed within you. And the moment you stand up on the inside, the moment your spirit says, I will not bow, I will not break, I will not back down, that's when heaven moves. That's when the fire ignites. That's when the oil flows. Because victory is not won with fists. It is won with faith, with obedience, with the decision to believe even when it hurts. And I know the enemy wants to keep you distracted, wants to keep you focused on all the things that look wrong, all the things that feel impossible, all the things you can't control. But let me tell you something. He's not afraid of your talent. He's not afraid of your potential. He's not even afraid of your dreams. He's afraid of you waking up to what's already inside of you. Because once you do, once you realize that the same spirit that raised Christ from the dead lives in you, then suddenly fear loses its grip. Suddenly shame has no power. Suddenly the atmosphere changes. Not because the fight stopped, but because you changed in the middle of the fight. It's the ones who rise up in private, the ones who worship when no one's watching, the ones who pray when the tears won't stop, the ones who forgive even when the pain is fresh, the ones who speak truth when it costs them something. Those are the ones who win battles before they ever step onto the battlefield, because they've already conquered the real enemy, the enemy within, the voice that said you can't, the voice that said you not enough, the voice that tried to bury your power with guilt and your purpose with grief, but you stood anyway. And when you stand on the inside, you will see everything begin to bow on the outside. So don't wait for the applause. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for the fear to go away, because victory is not a feeling. It is a decision, a declaration, a choice you make every morning when your feet hit the floor and your soul says, and no matter what I face today, no matter what tries to break me, no matter how dark it gets, I've already won because I refuse to quit. And that is the kind of fire the enemy cannot put out. That is the kind of power that doesn't come from personality or platform. It comes from the quiet resolve of a heart that knows who it is and who it belongs to. And if no one else says it, let me be the one to say it over you now. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are not forgotten. You are a warrior. You are a light. You are a force to be reckoned with. And every time you choose faith over fear, truth over lies, love over hate, peace over panic, heaven records it as victory. And the ground you gain inside yourself becomes the ground you take out there in the world. Because victory doesn't start with winning a fight. It starts when you refuse to be defeated before it begins, because victory begins on the inside.